I've been in e-commerce for 20 years now, done everything from open source MySQL, PHP to monolithic platforms at enterprise level to scale international businesses, which is fantastic and worked at the time. But certainly for the challenges and the vision of Surfology and what we wanted to achieve, that's absolutely why we went down this MACH route in the first place. I mean, as I said, we're not traditional e-commerce, we're not selling traditional products. And I mean, to give you a good example of that, as a marketplace, we're selling services, we're selling different treatments that clinics offer. So we don't actually know what service or what product they're going to be selling. We don't know what configuration it's in. So what we did very early on and made a really, really foundational decision on was to pick an e-commerce platform which would allow that flexibility.
I hear from customers of Amplience that they would do differently is not really thinking about the whole experience for your team. So they take a team from a certain place and deliver them into this sort of new world and do the big unveil, and the team would sit there and go, so that's great. But I can't use an API to set up a campaign or to do some merchandising or create a new assortment. That just isn't the way that we think about the world. We have an administration tool set that we kind of expected to be given back once you'd moved to the new world. But of course, in quite a lot of these implementations early doors, they were quite technology-led, and there wasn't enough time and energy spent thinking about that business user experience. So that potentially caused some serious disconnect. We've certainly seen customers do that. And I'd say the final thing is thinking about the end user customer experience itself, and really thinking about how do you break that down so that you don't end up rebuilding a sort of complicated set of interdependent templates in your new progressive web app or your single page app or whatever it happens to be. That can cause all sorts of grief later on when you realize that half of the content and experience is coded into that experience. So you no longer have content management capability to change the experience. You have to go back through a development cycle to do that. And we've seen quite a few examples of projects that have stalled, if not failed, because they didn't really pay due attention to the fact that you need to give the teams the ability to manage that experience themselves and not put it in the hands of developers. That's a retrograde step.
I think my advice to other companies that would be looking to do this is to just do it. I think that there's a lot of conversation about what to do, and you don't want to make a wrong decision. But the thing that I think is not often discussed is that it frees up a lot of your time to do other things. And if you're a company that is looking to be test driven and using data in a smart way, I don't think people initially see the benefit of that comes with increased amount of content and being able to do it more quickly. So I don't think Amplience sells that as a service because that they're selling the actual content creation. But I think the side effect of that is that you get time to do all these other sort of things that really help out your business.
The advice I would give to another organization would be to have a strategy, have an approach, understand, listen to experts, really do your research before diving in and making a decision, and have an open mind.
To find the right partner to help you actually achieve this and implement this. Taking this MACH approach is very, very different to a traditional monolithic approach. You need a partner that really understands how to bring together all of these multiple technology providers, orchestrate it through your seamless storefront, and bring that whole experience together.
The best thing to do, speak to other customers, other partners, other peers, go to the events, speak to people who've embarked upon this, because everybody's looking to do the same thing, but they're in different stages of their journey. Meeting with these people, having an honest discussion, is going to unlock the challenges, it's going to unlock the benefits, and more often than not will provide you with insights that you never even thought about, or elements which you'd never thought about before, and areas of focus that you should look at.
It feels really daunting to replace your entire e-commerce platform with technology you're not familiar with. So how are we tackling that? We're tackling that by delivering in small incremental chunks so that we can learn what works well and get much more familiar with the technology. If you can prioritize that against where you can drive greatest business value, it also helps to keep the stakeholders really engaged with what you're doing and keeping the funding going.
In MACH, there is a danger of a technologically sound and architecturally sound solution, but it has the danger of alienating business users. You've got to remember, with every project, every bit of software, unless people use it, the value is pointless, effectively limited. The fundamental thing is enable the teams that are doing the jobs to do their jobs, rather than having external dependencies. As an example, I need to put some content live, I need to go through a developer to do that, right? As long as you can piece all of that into your overall solution, I think that is something that makes MACH easy, successful, and a great bit of advice to give to people if they're thinking about how to do this journey.
I think the biggest advice that I could give anyone really thinking about embarking upon this right now is to really think about the organizational model up front and to think hard about the business change implications of moving to that model. The other challenge, of course, is that you're going to need a team that probably has different skills. Some of that team might make that transition to the new world very effectively. Some of them may not, and that's a challenge for teams that, you know, if they're faced with that kind of discontinuity in the way in which they work, they'll often dig their heels in and they won't adapt to that change very well. So it's worth spending the time really selling the benefits of that, taking team through it and really ensuring that they feel comfortable on the other side and that they're going to be properly tooled up to do their jobs in at least as good a way as they are doing now. I think the other side to it is think hard about the vendor set that you are going to work with. Although MACH gives you so much choice, I think it's quite important to find sets of vendors that work well together, because ultimately they're going to be involved in workshops together. They're going to be working with the system integrators on the sort of technology consulting side to really ensure that the design and architecture is right, but also later on from a customer success perspective, if they're used to working together with their colleagues in other vendors that are sort of part of many of the projects they've done already, then they're going to do that in a way that's far more efficient and fundamentally deliver a lot more value, I think, out of that solution, because the learning curve will be, you know, slightly less daunting. And fundamentally, there are good patterns that have been proven in the market around how these integrations really should work. I'd say the other thing is, don't try and boil the ocean. We've seen quite a lot of these projects where they tend to end up with a platform team that seems to have a lot of responsibility, and it's a lot of recreation of the old world in the new world because we can't do without that. And if that doesn't exist, then there's no way that process will work. If that's where you're getting to, stop, go back, think again, and start thinking in a much more agile way, and see if you can't decompose that monolith into smaller projects and pieces that can be managed in a much more agile way. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with a complex new platform with many of the problems of the old built in a new technology. And while that'll give you some advantages, it certainly won't give you the benefits that you are looking for.